Good morning and happy Travel Tuesday. Welcome to Happy Trails Hiking and the Healthy Lifestyle Show. My name is Kay and I'm happy that you're here with me today. I have a great guest for you for Travel Tuesday. But before we get into that, I do want to say a sincere and heartfelt thank you to all of you who texted or messaged or sent me stuff yesterday online saying that you missed Motivation Monday with me yesterday. I was not feeling well, and I didn't know exactly what number to call in for work to tell people that I wasn't going to be on. So thank you for those folks who cared enough to send a message. I appreciate that so much. Today, I have a wonderful guest for you for Travel Tuesday. It's Marissa Sutera, and she has a blog called Little Things Travel, and she also works for a company called Wanderful and Women in Travel Summit. So I do want to get to her bio and get her in here so she can start having a conversation with us as well. So her bio says, Marissa's love for travel was sparked when she studied abroad in an experience that inspired her to launch her travel blog, Little Things Travel. She currently works as the program manager of Wanderful and the conference director of the Women in Travel Summit. Prior to joining the Wanderful team, she worked in marketing and served as an advisor in international education while earning her MBA. Marissa is based in Chicago, where you can usually find her trying to get out of the city for some skiing, hiking, or biking when she's not traveling. You all, please welcome Marissa to the show. Hi, Marissa.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Kay.
Awesome. Hey, if you guys have questions for Marissa as we go along here, make sure you type at Happy Trails Hiking. We already have a wonderful room here, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. How did you get started as a travel professional, Marissa?
So, as you briefly mentioned, study abroad is really what kind of kick-started my journey into travel. So I studied abroad when I was in college, and then I came back and thought, well, that was a really great experience. How can I share that with all of my friends and family and everyone who's asking me about my trip and how it went? And so I started writing about it and just thinking, okay, it was just going to be about this trip, and then that was it. But I found that I really enjoyed that process of writing about travel and being able to share the things that I did and the places I went and turn it kind of more into a resource for people that were traveling to those same places. So that's kind of how my blog got started. And from there, I as I continued writing, I didn't even think about, oh, I'm in the travel industry, or I can now go into the travel industry, until I discovered this job in a study abroad office. And so I started working professionally in the travel space as well. And so that job really launched this whole other array of opportunities for me in that travel space. And my supervisor there at the time had actually shared with me the Women in Travel Summit in their first year in 2014, which was being held in Chicago. And I was based there at the time, but happened to be traveling during that weekend when it was taking place. So I couldn't actually attend, but I kind of kept following along with them. And then eventually they post this job opening. And I had applied for that. It was just kind of a part-time thing, helping out with some of the marketing of the event for their second year. And so that's kind of how I got onto the team. And then I started working more with them and the Wanderful team after that. And so now travel is really a part of my life in all areas.
Wow, that certainly is true. And I met you at the Midwest Travel Network conference.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. And the people kind of in the community here know me, and I used to tell them that I never win anything, but actually, I actually won a ticket for Women in Travel Summit in Kansas City this year. So
yes,
I'm very excited to be a part of that. Oh well, yay! I'm thrilled to get to be a part of it and see more about this travel lifestyle and meet more travel professionals. So that'll be really fun. So my second question for you is, are most of your trips solo adventures? Do you go by yourself most of the time?
Yes, they are. Occasionally, I'll travel with my partner or a friend or family, but for the most part, I am typically traveling by myself. Sometimes I'll add on to a work trip and just extend that and spend some time wherever that I am, whatever city that is. Sometimes I just will plan a little weekend getaway. Maybe it's, sometimes I'll travel for like other events. I try and basically build my trips around other things, other travels that I already have planned.
Cool. That's very fun. I know that Matt and I like to extend things as well, but most of the time I travel with him. So that was neat. So I've been reading your blog, by the way, and noticed that well, you said some things that struck me. So what are some of the examples of things that traveling has taught you that, in your own words, you couldn't have learned in a classroom?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like it's kind of funny too, because I think when I first started traveling and kind of soaking everything in and figuring out all these things that I was experiencing and what they meant, I felt like, wow, there is so much here that I'm learning that I never could have learned in a classroom. And so I think just in general, the first thing that comes to mind is really just the humanity of people and being able to connect with people on that personal level. There's the places that you've been, once you travel to them and you meet people there and you go to restaurants there and you experience each of the things that there are to do there, you have more of this connection with that place. And so, you see the places come up on the news or wherever someone's talking about them. And instantly you have that kind of, oh, I know that place and I know this person there. And it's more of a real place versus just some place that's a name on a map. And so I think the connections and understanding that there's this whole other community there and people just like us that have a lot of similarities, also a lot of differences that are really cool to explore and understand as well. I think that whole concept is something that can't be taught. You just have to go out there, experience it in these different places through your travels.
Sure, that makes total sense. So a question I didn't warn you about, but just came into my head. I bet you have met some amazing people. Is there one person that you've met through your travels that you just will never forget?
Yes. Yes, that's a tough question to just pick one. I guess I'll go with one that's more of a long-lasting friendship. I feel like there's been, all kinds of, even just brief encounters are things that can be really memorable. But I did meet a friend when I was traveling in Africa. Two friends actually that I regularly keep in touch with and have gone to visit ever since then. And we were in Zambia at the time, and we're part of this teaching program to kind of help the teachers when they were off. They're the winter for us in the U.S. Is their summer break, and so the teachers were off school, and so we kind of helped to do sort of like summer camp activities just to keep the kids engaged when they wouldn't have school otherwise. And so two of the friends that I met there, one lives in Sweden, one lives in the UK, and we still talk regularly. I just went to visit one last year. I try and see them, once a year if I can, but it's tough, obviously. But I think, just building those connections there and being able to keep in touch with people that are overseas and in all these different places, it's such a special relationship to have experienced these connections, just being like meeting in different places. And then when we see each other, we're in different countries, either in the US or in their country. And I think it has a different sort of relationship than you might have with your friends that you get to see all the time.
Sure, awesome. That's really cool. I've always loved the connections that I've made with people around the world, like even through YouTube. It's been really interesting. For instance, we have people in here from England, the UK, and Scotland. I mean, Desmond Stonders, Rachel Ross, and Gemma, they're all here. And I talk to them on a daily or weekly basis. And it's just really cool that I can travel that way virtually. But I know that getting to actually meet people is a totally,
and it gives you another reason to travel too, right?
right. Exactly. Yes, I do want to welcome everybody to the room. And I do want to let you all know that if you're new in the room, this is Marissa Sutera, and she is a blogger, but also works for Wanderful and the Women in Travels Summit. And I do want to get into that and have you tell us a little bit more about that as we go. If you all have questions for Marissa, please put them in the chat and I will try to get to them. And moderators, if I miss them, please copy paste and get my attention somehow. So my number 4 question is, I've been looking at your blog, as I said, and you've had a very busy travel schedule this year, everywhere from Latvia to Indiana and Colorado and Michigan and Mexico, and I guess the Dominican Republic. You've been everywhere.
Yes.
Like you've been very busy. And can you talk about several trips of these have been for WITS? Can you talk about Wanderful and the Women in Travel Summit as well?
Yeah, so Wanderful is an international community of women who travel. And so we have women all over the world that are a part of the community, all different countries. And one of the events that we put on is the Women in Travel Summit. And so that event is specifically for travel influencers, content creators, journalists, media, really anyone that is creating content, primarily digitally, but even just in general, as well as travel industry professionals, and kind of bringing all of those people together in the same space so they can collaborate with each other and learn from each other, learn from the different sessions we have going on throughout the weekend, while at the same time also getting to see the city where WITS is hosted in. That, of course, is a big part of WITS because we're bringing this travel media that wants to write about the places they're traveling to. So we definitely make sure to incorporate a lot of activities out in the city that you can actually get to know that place and you're not just in the conference center the whole time. So Latvia was one of the places you mentioned, and the reason I was there was because we held WITS in Riga just last month, actually. It was our very first WITS in Europe, which is especially exciting. So we've been running WITS for 6 years now, and so we are now doing it twice a year. So one in North America and one in Europe every year. So Riga went great. Next year, we're going to be in Gdansk, Poland in October. And then, as you had mentioned earlier, Kansas City is our North American event next year in May. So very excited for both of those events. But, it's just being able to travel for WITS is, even for me, just being able to get out into the city when I'm not working on WITS things is such a cool experience because we get to see the city through the eyes of locals a little bit more so, I think, than maybe you would otherwise. We have a lot of support from the tourism boards in the cities that we work in. And so they help put together a lot of these tours and fam trips that the attendees can sign up for. That's all included with the ticket price. So you get to see things a little bit more from kind of the things that they're able to highlight, knowing the city as locals.
That's cool. You know what I have found is that, I went to Medora, and Medora, North Dakota was my first experience with a travel, with travel professionals really at all. But I got to explore Medora with people who live in North Dakota, and they got to show us pieces and parts of Medora and of Theodore Roosevelt National Park that I would have never even known to explore because I'm not there. And so it was really cool. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
Mostly I guess my next questions are just the general ones that I love hearing from everyone. What do you like best about travel writing?
I think the thing that stands out to me the most when I'm writing about travel experiences is really being able to showcase more. I hate using off the beaten path because I feel like it's used so much and is starting to become kind of cliche, but just things that people are not necessarily going to go out and do on a typical trip. I still think it's important to see, some of the highlights of a trip. I always say if you're going to go to Paris, you should still see the Eiffel Tower if you're there for the first time, but also go and find that cute little cafe around the corner. Just to try and experience more of what it is like there as a local and talking with people while you're there. And so I'm getting sidetracked a little bit, but going back to your question, I think the thing that I like the most is highlighting those experiences and being able to really pull together my trips in a way that can be useful for other people and can help them try and figure out, okay, I'm going to this place, but what are the things I should actually do there? What's worth seeing? What's not worth seeing? Sometimes there are places I don't recommend going to if I've had a bad experience there. Or if I just didn't feel like it was worthwhile, and I'm happy to save people the trouble of going there too if I didn't think it was worthwhile. So, I think just being able to share those resources is something that I find really valuable when I'm doing my own research. And so I hope other people find that valuable as well, to just be able to narrow down their options and find better ways to connect with the places they're traveling to.
Cool. That's great. I found the same sorts of things. You mentioned places that you've had bad experiences with, and I haven't found too many places that I've had bad experiences with. Mostly the times that I have had bad experiences, it would be because of the time of day I went. Like,
yes,
try
like
to
too
go
crowded
to
or
right. You try to go to see Old Faithful. Well, you don't want to try to go to see Old Faithful at the noon,
yes, exactly.
when it's high peak time. So, anyway, for those of you who may be just joining us, we have so many new folks in the room, and I appreciate you all being here. This is Marissa Sutera, and she is a travel blogger, but she's also with Wanderful and the Women in Travel Summit. So I'm so excited that we have this travel professional with us. And if you have questions for her, please be sure to ask them in the chat. So my next question is, what is the hardest part about being a travel writer, Marissa?
Lack of time. I wish there were more hours in the day. I think the writing part, even though that's, the core of what I do, is actually the hardest part because it takes time. And some people, I think, can crank out articles like nothing. But for me, it takes a lot of time to really curate that content and think about what do I want to highlight and kind of organize my thoughts. Even part of that is debriefing myself after a trip, especially if it's someplace new for me. Being able to take that time to kind of decompress and think about, okay, what was my experience like? Why did this experience make me feel a certain way? And what do I recommend? What do I not? Going through all of those notes that I took during my trip, it's sifting through the notes that I didn't take. What was that restaurant I didn't write the name of that, I loved? And so it's kind of just taking all of that and putting it into an article and developing that content. It takes so much time. And so that is probably the biggest challenge for me, is just being able to get those out there, because I feel like anytime I might even be close to somewhat catching up, then I go on another trip and I've got all these other ideas for new articles to write. So it's never ending.
Sure. I understand that. Hey, I didn't ask you earlier, if someone wanted to connect with the Women in Travel Summit, number one, is it only for women?
No, men are very welcome as well. You should expect to be in a room full of mostly women, but there are still men that attend. We normally have at least a handful every year, so anyone is welcome.
Okay, and then I guess I have your links in the description below, and if they would just go to wnaderful.com, it will get them to where they need to be.
Yes. So Wanderful is the company that runs the Women in Travel Summit. So the Wanderful website is sheswanderful.com, and then the WITS website is witsummit.com. So that'll have information about the event specifically.
Excellent. And I will update I did get the She's Wonderful in there, but I'll update the description with the one from the WITS too. And Down the Rabbit Hole says that the hardest part of travel for her is that she doesn't travel enough. And she is a travel vlogger. So I think she gets to travel more often than I do, but that's okay. If somebody wanted to get started traveling, what would you recommend for them to do?
I think part of what, if you're taking baby steps, might be a good route is starting small. Just, if you're new to traveling, I think there's so many opportunities wherever you are to go. Within a few hours, you could just drive somewhere, even if it's within your own hometown. I think it's underestimated how much there can be to do, even in small towns where maybe you don't always do the normal touristy things, or even just in general, going out and kind of exploring with new eyes, other than thinking about like, oh, I've walked down this street a million times, I know all these things. Sure. Kind of take a new perspective on it. And it's like the same thing really as seeing a new place. You're seeing it with new eyes. You're doing some of the things. I mean, in Chicago, the Sears Tower, I just visited for the first time a couple of years ago, and I've lived here my whole life. And, so it's like being able to do some of those things is a good first step. But, just in terms of traveling more often, I think it's about finding balance. And like I said, I add on a lot of trips to other travels I already have. So if you have a destination wedding coming up, spend a couple extra days to go and explore that city. Even if it is only an hour away, maybe it's a place you haven't spent a lot of time. If you have a work trip, if your spouse has a work trip, try and tag along. That's a good way to kind of do it, even without spending a lot of extra money, if you can use those opportunities to your benefit.
Sure. Excellent. That's a great one. And thanks for answering that. And even though I didn't warn you about it. All right. So my next question is, what is your dream destination or tour?
I think one of the many places that it has been on my list for a while that I still haven't had a chance to visit yet is Thailand. I'm actually fairly new to Asia travel in general. I just had my first Asia trip, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I went to Nepal, and I was in India last year as well. But still fairly new to the continent there. And so I think Thailand is one of the places that has been on my list for a while and haven't had a chance to visit yet.
Gotcha. Desmond Stonders is suggesting Scotland because that's where he's from.
I love Scotland, and I need to go back to Scotland very badly.
And Down the Rabbit Hole is suggesting Peru, or maybe she's saying that's where her dream destination is. So, have you been to Peru?
I have not. It's also on my list, a never-ending list.
Right. I was going to say, my list just grows and grows and grows. There's so many in the U.S. that I still have. I'm like, okay, it's a slacker. But anyway, yes. All right. Well, I guess since I'm out of questions. Is there anything that you would like to add for our viewers today to encourage them to get out and travel?
Yes. So I think, traveling can sometimes seem like one of these things, especially if you don't do it often or ever. It can seem like one of these things that's so far-fetched, and, you have to have all this time and money and resources to do it. I think it's just a matter of reshaping your perspectives and thinking about how you can get out there in more ways than the traditional. Like, you don't have to go overseas. You don't have to go someplace super far away. There's so much that's right within your own reach, and being open-minded about those things and open to new experiences, and being flexible in what your expectations are, I think can really go a long way in helping you to see a lot more and find those travel experiences wherever you are.
Cool. Very, very good. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure that my viewers will come up with lots of other questions and things to ask once they've post-processed here. And so I will invite them to leave those questions in the comments below once this has ended. But I appreciate you being here so much, Marissa.
Thank you so much for having me, Kay.
It was wonderful to meet you this year, and I can't wait to see you again in Kansas City in May.
Me too. See you then.
All right. All right. If you'll wait 1 second, I'll close out the show and be right back with you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you all for joining me today for our talk with Marissa. I have enjoyed it so much, and I hope that you all will go down and visit the links below. Make sure that you go over, see her, check out her content, and let her know that you found her on Happy Trails Hiking. If you will, make sure that you come back and leave a comment below. That allows YouTube to know that this is doing something that is engaging people and really helping them to enjoy their time here. And 2 or 3, whatever, I guess I've now done 2 things. So number 3, make sure you go out and live the life you love today. And remember, you are not replaceable. Have a great day, guys.